What's going on, guys, and welcome back. So we're gonna start throwing some decks at you guys. You really liked how we did it before, so we're gonna do that. We're gonna go over some tech choices, then we're gonna talk about the list, talk about why I think it can be successful right now, where its pros and cons kind of lie, and if we got around to testing, because we were starting to test a handful of decks. Obviously, one day in, I can't have every deck tested, although so far Blurple has been feeling pretty good. I've been seeing a lot of green steel discard on Lorcanito, and I think that Blurple is actually favorable into that matchup. I've heard people say otherwise, but even going back to set 6, I got my Scar Championship Playmat because in top 4 I had to go against Green Steel Discard, who was a great player, good friend, and he thought that the matchup actually favored him, and lo and behold, I said I thought it favored me, and I came out on top. I'm not saying it's a slam dunk. I'm not saying that you just win and walk away with it, but I think that you have enough card draw and you deal with them pretty well, in addition to things like Elsa really helping with those Diablos and threats like that, to really tip the scale in your favor. So we're going to look at some other cards and kind of talk about it, and then some basic strategies, because another thing that I've heard is apparently Steel Song is a very bad matchup as well, and a lot of people think that. And again, I guess I personally haven't had the hardest time. I'm not saying against Slam Dunk, but I'd say it's got like close to 50-50. Like I don't feel like you just straight up lose to it like a lot of people are telling me. And I guess I'll kind of share my approach with that matchup when we go over my deck list and talk about it that way, because maybe it's just the way I navigate it, because I've played like Amethyst Emerald for the longest time, back to when that was not a favorable matchup at all during like Stitch set championships, and I played 3 Steel Songs on my way to getting my top 4 Stitch, and I beat all 3 of them, including one in top 8. So I don't know. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but we got some tech cards to talk about. Some things if you're looking for your 1 and 2 drops, there's not really a whole lot of variation that you're going to see. The majority of it's pretty well standard, but something you might see, because it also has a nice shift line, is Cogsworth. But in addition to that, it's if we're in an aggressive format, Cogsworth being a 1-cost card that you can play in tandem with something else, giving that something else rush in that turn, means you can play like a 3 or a 4 drop card, play your Cogsworth for that 4th or 5th ink, give your other card rush, and now all of a sudden you can rush into something and take it out that way. So some nice little interaction with Cogsworth, and again, offering that potential shift line to the resist Cogsworth is never going to be a bad thing in any deck. Still speaking on those more aggressive strategies, your Cuscos. So essentially this does what Magic Broom does, except when it's gone, it has Diablo-like effect where you get to draw. So turn 1, you get 1 drop. Turn 2, you ideally want to ramp, but say you put a Cusco down. Turn 3, then you play a crab, you boost your Cusco to 4. Now either you crash it or you take something out and he survives it, and then you get to swing once again next turn and get some good value on that. Even if you crash your crab, boost him back up to 4, crash into something, draw your card, replaces itself. A nice little tool in that 2-drop spot that I'm still considering. I'm going to continue testing the deck, but Cusco is really sounding like a potential add. I'm at 10 1-drops right now. I might take 2 of them out and put 2 Cuscos in on 2, just in case I miss that ramp. I got another potential card draw option to go with. Pinocchio, Talkative Puppet, another one. Sometimes your opponent has that card where they just don't want to exert it. You want to answer it right away, like Ariel Spectacular Singer. You drop this, force the exert on it, and then you can take it out sooner. So things like that, Pinocchio can be really nice for, or just when your opponent's trying to set themselves up or be in a position, just being able to force exert your opponent's cards is going to be a good, helpful tool, and he's a low-cost way to do it. It is uninkable, though, so that's kind of a big thing with this deck, is you don't want to get too high in your uninkable count, because a lot of your uninkable cards are higher cost. The next 2 we're going to talk about are right above each other and below each other. Peter Pan and Peter Pan's Shadow. So they're both 2/3s, they're both evasive, and they're both rush. The 4-cost Shadow, obviously questing for 2, but the Shadow also gives your rush characters evasive, whereas the Shadow Finder gives your characters with evasive rush. So essentially it would give your Genie rush, whereas Shadow would give your Fox evasive, which is a nice little toolboxy thing you can do. These 2 cards are very dependent on how dominant the steel deck, or not steel, the Emerald Steel discard deck becomes. I think that you handle it pretty well, though, still. You have Elsas that help you immensely in that matchup. Lots of card draw things. And that's another one where Cusco can put in work because it's a guaranteed draw like Diablo. Whereas Chernobogs and Broom, if they get answered prior, they don't draw you a card. So Cusco being a guaranteed draw is kind of nice in that regard. And it's, again, another one of the reasons I'm considering putting 2 of it in instead of the 2 followers that you'll see when we get to my list. If we're into a more controlled format, a slower format, Tinkerbell is a card I absolutely love. I play her and Genie in tandem in a lot of my Amethyst lists. Started seeing some other people doing it too. I've been a huge advocate for that. I think that the 1-2 punch that those two bring is very difficult to deal with. It applies a lot of pressure on your opponent. Both of them being evasive with more than 2 willpower means they're not the easiest things to get rid of, and your opponent really has to answer them or they're going to fall behind too fast. Belle. I saw a topping list playing Belle, a couple actually, Belle and Popsicle. We'll get to Popsicle later, but we're going to talk about them both now. Popsicle obviously is the 1-drop replace itself card. It's a do-it-all little tool. The healing actually comes up too. A lot of your characters have higher willpower, so being able to heal them, heal your Elsa, heal your Hades, heal those types of cards is actually heal your little Elsas too, heal your Genies. Like, there's a lot of good benefits of Popsicle in this deck. And if you're doing that and you want a potential, you could run the Belle. Again, we were seeing other Blurple decks doing it at different times last month. I can't even say last format. It feels like it now moving forward. Last month, where it gives you that early turn 1 3/3 3 singing, which means your friend's on the other side, body into those aggressive matchups. So that's something you can potentially do, but it's, I don't know, after it kind of just becomes one of those things where if you draw into her later, it's a good way to get another free body down, though, just by popping that Popsicle. So if you want to play Popsicle and Belle, it's not necessarily the worst choice in the world. Anna, our first dual color card we're going to talk about on here. She's a 2/3 inkable 4-cost who quests for 2, but when you play her, chosen opposing character can't ready at the start of their next turn. So it's kind of like a freeze effect when you play her. But in addition, she also has support, meaning when she quests for 2, you get to give her 2 strength to another character, which again, that can be very big and impactful, especially when you're boosting things like Diablo, like Cusco, where when your intent is to crash them, you also get to draw a card and replace themselves. So I do think that Anna is absolutely one of those cards that should at least be tested. The new Anna and the new Elsas, I think Anna is the far superior one out of the dual color cards. She's the one that I continue to play around with and test. We're just trying to stick at 60 cards, and for the moment, she's not quite making it into the list, but she's one of those cards that I think is at least worthy of talking about and might be close. Then we have our queens. I don't think we're going to be as discard pile reliant. A lot of those item decks, obviously, they got checked. I still think that Blue Steel and Ruby Sapphire, I know, hot take, controversial, my tier list sucks, it's not the best deck. I still think it's going to be the best deck. I'm not saying it's going to walk away and take 33% of the pie chart anymore. I don't think that. But seeing Popsicle, if they take like 17 to 23% of the pie chart, that won't surprise me at all. And if you go from 33 to 17, that is a huge drop off, and people are going to say, see, I told you so. And I'm going to say, still the best deck. Told you so. And I could be wrong, and I will happily come in here, happily tell you guys, hey, I'm wrong, but that's a good thing. If I'm wrong, that's a good thing. I'd rather be wrong than right, because I don't want another Popsicle format. We've been doing that since set 4. It's been a long time of Popsicles. It's been like 9 months where that's just the dominant deck. Otherwise, Scrooge, it's just a powerhouse as a 4-cost card. Uninkable is a big downside, but it's a 5/5 2-quester. We've seen him make appearances in like Blue Steel aggressive decks even. It's hard to deal with, and it can take out multiple characters, get crazy good trades, and quests for multiple to really apply that pressure to your opponent. Belle, the 4/4 stat line is really nice. Questing for 2, really nice. But being able to shift that damage too, very strong. So like, your opponent has a Genie. I love using this example for it. Your opponent has Genie. You have a Genie. Their Genie's exerted now. You take Genie, go into it. They both take 2 damage. You play your Belle. You move your 2 damage onto their Genie. Now your Genie has 0 damage, and their Genie is into their discard pile. Little things like that. Otherwise, I also had like an interaction where my opponent had 2 Smee on board, and I had a Hades, and I Hades into the Smee, took 3 damage, played Bell, moved that 3 damage to the other Smee, so Hades essentially took out both Smees. Bell is a very strong card, and she was the last card I cut from the deck. I really do like playing her as like a 2-of. So potentially the 1-drop swap with Cusco and then possibly putting Bell back in. But we'll see how the format settles. We'll talk about the card I put in instead of her. In our other 5 drops, we got Aurora and Cogsworth. So these two kind of fulfill the same spot while doing completely different ways about it. So Aurora gives your characters ward, Cogsworth gives them resist. I think Cogsworth is more favorable into a steel meta, whereas Aurora also is good into a steel meta, but it also helps more into that ruby, because obviously they can't target you with the strength, with the storm, with the Zeus, with the Medusas. Lady Tremaine gets around it, grab your swords gets around it, be prepared gets around it. So there's workarounds to it. And Cogsworth, the resist is just really strong at times too. Personally, I favor Aurora, and I was playing her earlier this format prior to the ban list, if you will. I mean, the banned cards. It's not really much of a list. Baymax is another fun card to try in there, where you can just heal your cards, get the lore for it, play it, get that immediate 2 lore that your opponent really doesn't see coming a lot of the time. Again, your Elsas, your Genies, your Hades, your big Elsas, like you have a lot of high willpower characters. Just being able to heal them up and get that guaranteed 2 lore is really, really strong. Gaston, 4/4. We've already just said it with Bell, and we talked about the 5/5 with Scrooge. A 4/4 is a big stat line. Questing for 3 is also, but looking at the top 3 cards and getting one to your hand, he's such a good consistency card and hard to deal with. The downside is we already play so many high-cost uninkable cards, it's hard to justify putting in another one. So Cusco and Hideaway. Items and locations. How dominant are they going to be? They're just both on this list because they're cards to consider if we're into a item/location focused format, where it looked like that's what we were heading for. So we saw a lot of Hideaways and Cuscos. However, at the moment, I don't think that they're worthy of playing. Ana is actually a solid answer for those discard decks if they have all their ward characters, their Prince Johns, their Muses. If you're trying to get their, I mean, Diablo's probably going to get exerted because they want their card draws. But cards like that, because she comes down, exerts their whole board, and then you get to pick it off and take care of them. Kind of like a grab your swords effect. It doesn't target, it doesn't make that any of that happen, it just does it to the whole board. So it's kind of your answer for that. If you have a very heavy green steel discard meta, maybe you want to consider putting Ana in there instead of some of those Hades Elsa spots. I'm not saying to cut Hades or Elsa, but maybe cut 1 or 2 of those ratios and put in a couple of her. If Steel Song, even Green Steel, because they have those songs, if you're in a song heavy meta, this deck can get Ursula out very effectively, and you don't play many songs, so she really doesn't put much of a damper on you. 4/7, questing for 3, and inkable is insane, and being able to exert your opponent's character. We talked about it with Cusco, or not Cusco, with Pinocchio. Force exerting your opponent's characters is very, very strong. I think that she is an incredible card, and again, if you're in a song heavy meta, absolutely, I think that Ursula could deserve a spot in a Blurple deck. We already kind of mentioned Hideaway. Otherwise, you have Visions, just super consistency card, and Finders Keepers. Again, depending how dominant discard is, we saw this before, where discard in Bucky format and Finders Keepers became such a strong card in that early set 5 meta. That might have actually been after Bucky with the post-errata Prince John discard versions. I think that's where we were at that point. But Finders Keepers is just draw 3 cards. It replenishes your hand. You top deck it. Now you have 3 cards to play with. And you're playing Blurple, so odds are you have enough ink to where you can at least play one of those cards. And again, you're playing Blurple, so there's a good chance one of those cards draws you another card. So lots of good answers there. Finders Keepers is a solid 1 to 2 of tech. How far I'll go, consistency and ramp. Let it go, just another potential form of removal. Quill and Dragon, just other ramp tools if you would like. You draw a lot, so Fishbone Quill can be kind of nice. Great Stone Dragon, you're high in your character count, so again, it's a good strong ramp tool if you're going for that. Some other locations, Library. You got all those 1-drops to double up on your draws. Otherwise, when you're crashing characters, having them replace themselves, it's very strong. And McDuck Manor, having 9 willpower, getting you 2 lore in the process is very good. So my list. As far as competitive decks go, Blurple has been and continues to be one of the better budget version decks in the format. It's about $170, at least for my list. And again, I play 10 1-drops, and I'm highest in the 4-drop characters. We got 12 uninkable cards. You see the Diablos, Brooms, each at 4, and 2 Churnabox followers. In this deck specifically, I think that Followers is the weakest one. I like Diablo and Broom because if I need to crab boost them to be able to crash into stuff, I like being able to draw with Diablo or have the second willpower from my Broom. I like when I can play a Broom on 1, my opponent has a Daisy, and this is my answer to it, and I drop a crab on 3, boost my Broom to a 4/2, can take out that Daisy and survive it. Chernabog takes it out, but it will not survive it. I like to keep that body on board and be able to survive that challenge is one of the bigger things for me. Snake really isn't a turn 1 option, so playing it at 3 is perfectly fine. For Tipo, you really, really want to hit your ramp on 2, so Tipo and Sail at 4 is pretty much mandatory. 4 Fox is pretty much mandatory. 3 to 4 Crab. You definitely don't want to play less Crabs. I needed space, so I cut one down. I was like, we got a lot of draw power. You don't always need it. I think that 3 is fine. 4 is ideal if you can fit it, but 3 is perfectly fine. For Genie, right now at least, I think Genie's the way to go. I think Genie is a great answer for the format. I think it draws you a card. It's evasive. It's 4 willpower. It quests for 2. There's not a whole lot more you could ask it to do. So I do think that the Genie Rabbit ratios of 4-3 is correct at the moment. But again, as the format changes, that's one of the ratios that I've gone back and forth and changed up a little bit, whether it's like 4-3, 3-4, 2-4, 4-2, depending on those ratios. 4 Goats, pretty standard. Magica Dispel. So this is what I put in instead of the 2 Bells and the 1 Crab. And for those who don't know, played her in past discard formats. During your opponent's turn, if an effect would cause you to discard 1 or more cards from your hand, you don't discard. So you get her down, and it turns off their discard strategy. Every game I've ever gotten her out, I have won, because Zeus isn't insanely popular in that deck, and she has 5 willpower. So that means they would need to like double sing a strength with at least 3 characters to be able to clear her out in one go. This is another reason that Aurora could be so strong, because if you get her out, come back with Aurora, now she has ward and just sits there and protects your from discard. You leave your Aurora and your Magica just sit there essentially, and then everything else on your board quests out, deals with their board, goes after it, because you'll be faster, you'll be stronger board presence, and you'll be able to take them out very effectively, and they will have absolutely no answer for it because all of their actions are dead. They can't target, and they cannot make you discard. Obviously, they could say like Bruno on the Aurora would be their only answer for that initially, or if they do play Zeus the Aurora first, which now they don't have the Zeus for the Magica, so it still works out in that regard. I guess the only other thing would be if they do play Muses and you don't have a way to give her ward, Muses would be their way to get her off the board, so then they can force you to discard at least once. Then you get her back next turn, and they would have to do it all over again. 4 Elsas is mandatory right now. Discard's coming back. Diablo is insanely popular right now. Elsa, absolutely 100% mandatory. Hopefully you guys got your Diablos when they were cheap. They were down to like 18s. I said to pick them up. Hopefully you got your Sad Beasts. I don't know if they're still at like 22, 23. Pick them up. They're going to go up in price. Yeah, both those cards are just insane right now, and Diablos are like $45, $50 now. They've gone skyrocketing. It's crazy. Other characters we're playing. We got 2 of the 5-drop Donald Duck. It's just another mid-game ramp tool. Ramps off the top of the deck, so it doesn't hurt your advantage at all. It doesn't cut you down in that discard. But it's a 3/4 body that quests for 2, and he's inkable, so I think he's very, very strong and gives you that board presence. And then being in a expected aggressive format a little bit too, I think 2-3 ratios on the Hades Elsas is correct. I go back and forth all the time. Sometimes I play 3-3. 2 weeks ago, I was on 3 Hades, 2 Elsas, and I think that was the right call at the time because the removal was more important than the exerting. But right now, I think the double exerting is more important than the removal. So again, this is just one of those things that can fluctuate and change. For sale, like I said, too important. For friends, consistency, it's too good of a card. A lot of time I do ink it, but at the end of the day, especially if you're against like green steel, ink it. You have other draw outlets. And then Queen's Castle. I'm still a huge advocate for Castle. I think it's still the best option here. Getting Castle down on 3 is insane. Getting characters to move there, I think it nets you the most draws compared to Library. I think it gets you the most lore compared to Library. Obviously, the manor's harder to deal with and gets you potentially more lore, but there's no draw potential there. Going from 7 to 8 willpower, I've not once had that actually matter. Usually if they're taking out my castle, they would clear the library anyway, so there's really not a whole lot of difference. Library being great when you can move a character there, crash them, and immediately get that value, or quest them, or play a card and pop them, getting that immediate value. If it sits there for your opponent's turn, they're just going to take the location out anyway. But versus those Steel Song decks, something I've always done, like if you're on the play, you can go ahead with pretty much any one drop because you'll just pop them for the draw on turn 2. If you're on the draw, Diablo is really the only one I like. Otherwise, skip your one drop. You're just throwing it out there. You're going to get hit by a storm. You're going to get wiped. They're going to draw a card. It's going to be a waste of a card. You're better off inking it and playing for that mid to late game. If they go full bore aggro on you, it can get away. If they don't come down with Cinderella, though, come down with that Broom on turn 1. And then when they try to progress that state that way, if you can go like Broom, Teepo, Crab, start trading with their board very effectively, your Foxes are going to be very strong into this matchup as well. Being able to keep their Singers off board, use those Hades on those Singers, get them gone, get it to where they can't use them. Keep an eye too, like reading them. You don't want to necessarily be bouncing your Elsa back to your hand immediately if they are playing as if they have a whole new world. Like, you got to read your opponent to a degree. That's one area that deck can get way over on you, is if you have the great hand, you're about to get to that ink point, you have your Elsa, you have your Hades, you have your Bouncer, and then they whole new world you and you lose it all. So do just remember that whole new world is a card, so sometimes just trying to bounce it all and sit on that stuff to recycle it isn't the play. Sometimes leaving it on board and just dealing with their board presence is the better play. Force them to have no presence, hard cast it to get it out of your hand and gone, and do it that way. Otherwise, guess what? During your opponent's turn, if a card would make you discard one or more cards from your hand, you don't discard, meaning you draw 7 cards. You don't discard your hand. Magicka Dispel also putting in a lot of work into that Steel Song matchup. So again, I don't think the Steel Song matchup is unwinnable. I don't think it's unfavorable. I think it's, we'll call it 50-50. I'll be generous. We'll call it 50-50. I think it's very winnable. Versus your, say, Popsicle and slower decks, you're going to go turn 1, turn 2 ramp, turn 3 Castle or Genie, come down aggressive, put that pressure on, gas pedal to the floor, don't let up. Then turn 4, drop another character, start moving characters to the castle, start drawing those extra cards, and just gas down, go for it. Versus more quick pace decks, you're going to want to hit like a Broom on 1 and then Teepo on 2 over the Azurite, unless you have like Azurite and can come back with a second Broom. That would be different, because then you still get the 1-2 body on board. And then on 3, come back with Crab, boost something, turn 4 Fox, because then you can Crab into something, take it out, Fox bounce the Crab, give like your Broom or your Teepo +3 once again. Now all of a sudden you have a 4-2 Teepo and a 4-3 Fox that can both go at your opponent. Hitting something like that versus those more aggressive strategies is what I would go for in that case. But overall, let me know what you guys think down below. Let me know what decks you struggle against, and I'll give you my rough off the top what I try to do against them. Thank you guys for watching. As always, like, share, subscribe, comment down below. Take care.